thanks for purchasing your outdoor planter kit from Fleurish Flower Shop. My name is Jamie Gage and I am the owner of Fleurish Flower Shop. And today I am going to demonstrate to you how to take your greenery and create a beautiful planter that looks professionally done and spectacular on your front step. Your kit came with one bunch of twigs that is either dogwood, curly willow, or alpine huck, and that will just be based on availability coming from BC and whatever product we think is the most beautiful that week that you get your planter. So today we're using dogwood, which I've actually just cut from my backyard. If you need extra product, you can always do that as well. It's a great opportunity to cut down some of your branches. Same with birch poles or other things that you might find in your garden. So you'll have your twigs. You will also have one bunch of pine, which is the longer needle greenery. You will have one bunch of cedar, which is the stuff that smells so amazing. And you will have one bunch of Douglas fir. So this is your first step. You'll be starting with the fir. Now all of our greenery is picked fresh in BC the week or so before you receive it. So all of our product is fresh. Sometimes when you purchase greenery from a grocery store or another big box store, that product has been picked and cut weeks and weeks and weeks ago and just stored. So that is why it often will die sooner than the product that we get from BC. All right. So you want to start with here are my clippers. You want to start with your fir. Now they do the bunches by weight, so you won't always have the exact same types of branches in each one of your bunches. If you have, 2 or 3 planters that you've ordered, each bunch might be slightly different, but they are done by weight. So they are essentially the same amount of greenery, just bigger or smaller branches. Okay, so you want to start with one of your branches like this, and you can see that there are lots of little breaks at the bottom. So you want to take your clippers. If you don't have a pair of clippers, you can just get any at a garden center or Canadian Tire or anything like that. And you want to clip the bottom. Now this is the most important part to start your outdoor planter, is placing your first set of greens. So if you do this part right, it'll be way easier to finish your planter at the end. So after you've cut at the break, you'll have a nice long stem. Now in your kit, you will have received a bucket of foam to do this in, but I'm just going to do it in the soil because my soil is not frozen yet and it's already full of soil. So if you have soil in your planter already and it's not frozen, just go ahead and do it in the soil or do it in the bucket. The process is the same. So you want to start with your Douglas fir or any type of fir. And you want to put it in on an angle. So this is the important part. So often you will see do-it-yourself planters where people have started by putting the greenery in like this, flat. You're just going to end up with this kind of soggy planter with nothing happening in the middle and no height. So you want to start with this, and you want to put it in on an angle so that it's kind of flat like this and not facing down and not curled up. So kind of like fanning sideways. My dirt actually is a little frozen. Okay, and then same with your next branches. You want to cut it down a bit like that and put your second piece again also on an angle. It's a little easier to do in the foam. Okay, and then branches like this that have huge amounts of breaks, you want to do the same thing and cut it just at the bottom as well. We'll reuse those other bits as after. And put your third piece, again, fanning out on the outside. Okay, so you've got your 3 pieces all fanning out almost like in a little triangle shape. And you may or may not have a couple more pieces. You can take those and fill in the sides. And if you have a front facing planter that goes against the wall, you can always take one of your pieces at the back and keep it flush to the back of the wall so that it's a little bit higher on the back and then more front facing. So you can kind of go either way. The wall will support it if you put it on an angle. I'm just going to put it on an angle for this purposes. Okay, all right. So you can take your smaller bits of fur and fill in the sides. And make sure you're putting it in nice and deep in the soil or nice and deep into the foam. Because especially once it gets windy, you want to make sure that greenery is nice in there so that it doesn't blow away. So that's the fir portion, and then we're going to move on to the cedar or the pine. The next step doesn't really matter, but you want to always start with the fir. Now once you're done the fir, you can move on to the cedar. So cedar right now is gorgeous, but it also can be a little wonky and a little floppy, and knowing what to do with it is again the most important thing. So if you want to take a piece like this and again give it a nice little clip, if you don't have clippers, it's not the worst thing in the world. You can just put it in the soil the way that it is, but this just opens it up a little bit so that when you water it, it still is drinking with a fresh cut. So this is where you're going to fill in the spaces in between the fir with the cedar. So make sure you're putting it in nice and deep. Okay. And if you've got taller pieces, you can put those more towards the back. And then some of your drapier pieces at the front. That's a little bit too long. So if you're finding a piece is really flopping like that one is, and I don't love it, I'm just going to clip it, and then I've got an extra little piece that I can move to another spot. All right. And I'm going to save a few little pieces of cedar for the end, just if I have spots that I need filling. So once you're done with your fir and your cedar, you can move on to your pine. And again, you're just filling in the holes with this pine. Now, with the pine, you can actually get a couple pieces out of the pine if you choose. So you can see how there's a little bit of a break right there. You can clip on that break, and then you'll have two pieces of greenery that will fill in nicely. Okay. And it's always a good idea to stand back from your planter and take a look at what it looks like from a distance and then come back and make any adjustments. Now this planter is on the bigger side, so the small kit won't be enough greenery to fill this. The small kit is best for almost like a 10-inch and smaller size planter, but this one is closer to 14 inches. So I'm going to move on to the additions that you will get if you are ordering the medium or the large size planter. So if you have the small, this is the ingredients that you have, which are great for a lot of people. But if you want a bigger, fuller look, you might want to get the medium or the large. Now, once you have all of the greenery in there, you can add your twigs. So a couple different options. You can put them right in the middle, which I like because it gives lots of height, and especially if you have a taller house like we do. It just gives a better scale. If you are in a bungalow or maybe have a smaller entry that you're doing this in, you can always cut the twigs shorter and put them in and around. But if you want to have the height, putting them right in the center is the way to go. So now I have a few little holes to fill and a bit more cedar. So I'm just going to add those bits. Stand back and take a look. It's good to have the cedar just kind of drape along the outside. I like how that looks. And you can also use, if you have a hole in the middle, you can use your twigs to prop everything up for a little bit of extra height in the middle, because you don't want that hole in the middle, like I said at the beginning, when you put the greenery in all flat. So this is what your smaller kit will get you, and it's beautiful and perfect, like I said, for a 10-inch or under planter. If you have a little bit of bigger planter, we'll move on to what the medium kit includes. So the medium kit is all of these, as well as the Oregonia, which is this beautiful variegated greenery from Oregon. Oregonia, Oregon. And the nice thing about this is it just dries and crisps up looking exactly the way that it does when you receive it. And it's got a nice kind of limey light green texture that adds just a lot of depth to your planter and allows your planter to stand out a little bit differently than maybe your neighbors that are just grabbing a couple bunches of greenery. So you can take your Oregonia and just fill in. And again, this is also done with weight. And so you might have little bits and bigger bits. And I would take the little bits and put them more on the outside and save your larger pieces for up in the middle and around the sides. And if your planter is front facing, like mine is up against a wall, don't worry about the back. Just fill in the sides and the front. I say that as I put one in the back. And again, as you're doing this, stand back from your planter and take a look at what it looks like. Because when you're staring close down at your planter, it sure doesn't look the same as it does from the street. Your medium planter will also include an additional bunch of cedar. So the nice thing about the cedar and the extra bunch of cedar is it really allows you to fill in all of the holes. So take your clippers, or if you've got smaller pieces, you don't have to bother cutting them. I would just shove them in. That's a florist term, shoving in. Okay. So there are the ingredients for your medium planter. This is probably the perfect amount of greenery that you would need for this size planter. But again, I do like to make mine really nice and full. So I will move on to the large. So this will be the large kit in a medium size planter pot. And for your large, you will get 2 pine, 2 cedar, 2 fir, 2 Oregonia, and 2 bunches of twigs. So that is in addition to the medium planter, you will get 1 extra pine, 1 extra fir, 1 extra Oregonia. So all you need to do with your large is, once you've got this beautiful base, is just keep filling in to make it extra full and extra lush. Now, if you have the larger planter, it might be a good idea to use your fir all at once and really fill out that triangle all at once. But if you are watching this video as you're working, don't worry, you can add the fir in after. So if you've got a larger planter, you need more height. So don't cut your greens down at the end as much as you did at the beginning. So this is just a good opportunity to add extra height. Unless you have a crazy piece like this, in which case take this piece to make it wider. And cut it down on the break and fill in. So, and also sometimes the greenery will do some crazy things. Keep an eye on that, and you can just turn your greens in the direction that makes sense for your planter. If you are using a foam bucket though, try not to be pulling everything in and out. The foam will just go to mush and it'd be a disaster for you. But if you're in the dirt, just keep pulling in and pulling out and you're good to go. So that's the extra bunch of pine, and now, oh, we already did cedar. Now you'll add your extra bunch of fir. If you have a planter that is south or west facing or a little bit more exposed to the wind, you're going to want to keep it watered throughout the winter. If you have a north or an east facing planter, you shouldn't have to worry too much, as the warm winds and the chinook and the sun are not going to affect it as much. So for your large planter, I'm going to add my last remaining fir, just again into the holes to make it bigger and showier. So this is a taller, wonkier piece. And it's a good idea to add some of your taller pieces also at the back to give some good height. And you will still have some extra twigs. Now you can see that as I've been designing, it's getting really full at the back and the twigs have gotten a little bit lost at the back. So I'm going to add the rest of my twigs a little bit more forward. And in your large, it will also include one more bunch of Oregonia, because you do have 2 of each. And again, you can use that to fill in all of your holes. This is my favorite because it just makes it so rich and colorful. Perfect. So there's your large planter. And because I like lots of texture and different types of materials in my outdoor planters, there are the options to add different things like magnolia. So once you have everything done, this is when you will add the additions like berries, magnolia, cotton, etc. So with the magnolia, because the bunches are small, I would recommend just concentrating your magnolia on the front of your planter, just to give the most impact. Same with seeded eucalyptus, which is one of my favorite things to add. This is nice because it's really drapey, so you can put it at the front. And one of my other favorite things to add too is baby blue eucalyptus, which is this type of eucalyptus, which just adds a nice texture to it. Again, concentrating mostly just on the front that people can see from the street. Or if you've got a full round pot, again, do it all round. Okay. And there you go. And thanks very much. That is your instruction video. And if you have any questions, you can always call the store or pop in to chat with any of our excellent designers. Thanks very much and have fun planting.